I'm an editor at Dark Horse Comics. We're the third largest comic book publisher in the States after Marvel and DC. We do comics. We do the Hellboy line of comics, Star Wars, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Mass Effect, The Goon, a whole bunch of different titles, a lot of genre stuff, sci-fi and horror. And my focus is more on the horror stuff.
And some of the comics that you guys do, did you guys pick up like Buffy and Hellboy before they became big media?
Well, Buffy was a TV show first. Well, it was a movie first, and then no one cared, and then it was a TV show. And we picked up the rights to do the comic sort of in the middle of season 2, and it took us a little while to get anything out, so I think the first comics came out around the time of season 3. And I was the editor of those back in 98 or whatever it was. Hellboy we were publishing as a comic back in 94, and the first films, well, the films were made in the like 2003, 2004, something like that. And Dark Horse Entertainment was instrumental in getting the movies made. So with things like Buffy and Star Wars, we come on later and start a comic line, and with other things we do it first, and then maybe try to get a TV show or a movie going.
So how involved was Dark Horse Comics in making like the films, like the Hellboy films?
Well, Dark Horse is owned by a guy named Mike Richardson, and Mike is the publisher and president of Dark Horse Comics, and he's also the president of Dark Horse Entertainment. And so he was an executive producer on the Hellboy films and most of the other films we've made, all the other films we've made. He's executive producer. So the Dark Horse publishing part of the company, which I'm in, Mike is kind of the only link between the two. It's Mike that runs the publishing company and Mike that runs the entertainment company. So I just work on comics, and then guys like Keith Goldberg and Chris Tung just work on the film stuff.
Yes, they did a great job on those movies.
Yeah.
So anybody out there, just average Joe guys who want to get into comics and art and writing and stuff, what kind of inspiration, what kind of direction would you point it in, kind of suggestions? Or?
Well, you know, comics is a really tough market to break into. It's a really tough art form to get your head around, and because of, you know, the like popularity of comic book projects in the mainstream now, more and more people are always trying to get involved in comics, but without like really dedicating the time to the art form that you would with any art form that you're trying to take seriously or trying to get good at. So I would say, you know, try to get into comics if it's an art form that you're really passionate about, that you've put the time in and really studied it the way you'd study any other art form, and you know, and do the work yourself, like do it through practice. I also see people who are pitching comics that have never even tried to write a comic script before. And there's differences between comics and any other storytelling format that you gotta grasp, you gotta master, and it takes time, like with anything else. Unlike a lot of other art forms, there's not great books about how to write comics or how to draw comics. There are many books, but you know, you don't have like a Sid Field who's written a bunch of great books about screenwriting. You don't have anybody like that writing books about writing comics. So everybody is self-educated, you know, in this field.
Is Dark Horse Comics, are you guys working on anything new coming out? Any big projects in the...
Yeah, I mean, we've got new books coming out all the time. We've got a real push for new creator-owned stuff right now, which this weekend in Emerald City Comic-Con is a comics show in Seattle, and it's the same weekend as HorrorCon, so I missed it this year. But there we were announcing some new creator-owned stuff, new stuff with Steve Niles, a new Criminal Macabre hardcover graphic novel that we're doing with him and Scott Morris. We've got a new kind of psychological horror series called Colder with Paul Tobin and Juan Ferreira, and a number of other, you know, like new books spinning off of existing properties. Michael Avon Oming, the co-creator of Powers with Brian Michael Bendis. Mike has a new book with us called The Victories, which is like the darkest, sickest superhero story I've ever read. I'm editing that one, and I love it. And it's really crazy. For people who want like edgy, gritty superhero comics, there's nothing edgier or grittier out there than what Mike's doing, and it's pretty crazy. It's called The Victories, and it comes out later this year. One of the other big things, new initiatives we've got, is motion comics. There's been a big push to do motion comics, to do animated versions of existing comics. And a lot of stuff's been done, and a lot of it hasn't really been that good, and it's just like a real bastard medium mixing flash animation with comic books. We're working with a guy named Eric Brookweiler, doing really great motion comics with incredible animation to them. And where Felicia Day, the creator of the Guild, has a channel on YouTube called Geek and Sundry that I think just started. And on April 2nd, we're making our debut on Geek and Sundry. We're going to have a series called Dark Horse Motion Comics, which is us taking some of our big graphic novels and doing adaptations to motion comics. And we kick off with a thing called The Secret. That's a total of 40 minutes. Over 4 days, we're going to release 4 10-minute chapters of this complete graphic novel. And I think people are going to be blown away by the quality of the motion comics.
So that's an existing graphic novel that you're now putting into motion?
Correct. Yeah.
Are you actually animating the characters, or is it just more like...
No, it's fully animated. And The Secret was a painted graphic novel. So Eric did this amazing job of taking Jason Alexander's artwork and fully painted artwork and animating it so the characters are moving independently. It's really phenomenal stuff. It's wild. It's unlike any other motion comics we've seen before.
So with Dark Horse Comics being the number 3 in the market, what do you predict? What do you see the future of comics? A lot of people look at comics as coming to like an end of like newspapers and stuff like that. But what do you think is really going to happen?
I think it's going to continue to evolve. I think the electronic stuff's going to continue to be an important part of it, whether it's motion comics or just reading comics on your iPad or whatever other tablet, reading comics online. A lot of independent creators have been able to achieve some level of success by just posting like a page or two a week of a serialized thing that goes on for a long time. That's going to continue to be an important part of it. But one thing we've done is partner up with some of those online comics to do print editions, because people really still like to read books and have books in their hands. So the future of the pamphlet is definitely evolving. Like what happens to the skinny stapled comics is going to keep changing. And comic specialty stores are going to continue to adapt, and they've really embraced the trade paperback thing, and trade paperbacks and hardcovers are probably more popular than ever. But yeah, it's going to continue to evolve and need to be many different things to stay vital. And I think the electronic world will be an important part of that. But I'm a real books guy. I love to have books in my hands. And I think a lot of our readers and our fans are that way.
So I want to ask you a question. You were in Utah at the library like last
A couple of years ago. I think it was a few years ago.
So you live in Washington, right?
Oregon.
Yeah. So how often do you like Utah?
I like Utah. Utah is like one of the most beautiful states, for sure. And I think of it as, I don't know if Utah counts as Northwest, but this whole Northwest, which to me is all the way from Seattle to Wyoming, I just love driving through it. I drive all around Oregon all summer and do little day trips and weekend trips all around Oregon. But I love it when I can get down into Nevada. To get here, this time I drove, I didn't fly here. I drove across the north edge of Oregon, down 84, down the side, through Idaho, coming in here from Ogden. To get home, I'll drive west across the Salt Flats, go about halfway across Nevada to Winnemucca, and then go up and cut through like the middle of Oregon. And it's much slower going that way because there's no major highways going. What is it? It's 80, right? So when I leave 80 to go north, I never hit another interstate again. I'm going slow all the way home. But I just love it in the more open parts of Nevada. I love, and Oregon up through the middle is just beautiful. But Utah is uniquely spectacular out of all these states. I mean, it's the most spectacular. I love Wyoming for like the big wide open fields and everything, the rolling hills. But none of it, except for the Tetons, none of it compares to this. The first time I did a trip straight through the middle of Utah, when I was going to Denver, I couldn't believe the lakes and the rock formations that I saw. So yeah, I just love to get out, drive around, and see it all. Yeah, Dark Horse Comics, we've got tons of Mignola books coming out all the time. This week we put out a book that I wrote with Mike called BPRD Hell on Earth, The Pickens County Horror, which was a nice little nasty horror story. It's a 2-parter, completely stands alone, so if you've never read Hellboy before, you can check this out and you won't be coming into the middle of something. But with The Goon and Criminal Macabre and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel and Faith, we do a lot of the best horror comics around, including new creepy and eerie anthologies, plus hardcover collections of all the old stuff that was just, some of the best horror comics of all time. So horror comics is only part of what we do, but it's the part I kind of focus on.
So just a real quick question about Buffy, just because my wife got me into that several years ago. But do you have any direct influence or anything from the producers of the TV show?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean I co-write the book with Joss Whedon. Like Joss is the idea with us doing Buffy. We've been doing it for a long time, and I gradually got to know Joss a little bit. But he wasn't very involved in the comics at first. But then when the TV show ended, we talked about it, and we're like, let's continue this. Let's do a season 8, because the show is 7 years long. Like, let's do a season 8. So we kicked it around for a couple of years, and eventually came up with what we wanted to do, and he just turned in the first issue script. This is a number of years ago. He turns in a first issue script and says, all right, this is season 8. And so we produced that comic together for 4 years, Buffy season 8. He wrote a lot of it. If he didn't write it, he edited it. He and I wrote the finale together. And with season 9, he's really busy with the Avengers movie right now. But he is still calling the shots and supervising the scripts and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just him. Like some of the other writers from the TV show work with us as well. But it's all everybody working toward Joss's vision, and he's got a story he wants to keep telling, and that's the story that we're working on.
So we're going to have Buffy for several more years to come?
Maybe. I mean, we definitely know what we're going to do. Pretty much know what we're going to do for season 10. Season 9 is going to be 25 issues, and I think the 7th one just came out. And we're going to do 25 issues of season 9, take another break, and then we'll have season 10 eventually. We don't have any plans to end it right now. I don't know that we'll just continue off into the sunset forever, but as long as Joss has a story that he wants to tell, we'll keep going.
And as long as he has stories to tell, we want to keep listening. So.
Right on.
Genius.
What's your guys' website?
Darkhorse.com. Yeah, and check out Geek and Sundry, Felicia Day's channel on YouTube, and the Dark Horse Motion Comics program, which kicks off with The Secret on April 2nd, and it'll be updated daily for a week.
Very good.
All right, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.